slid the envelope across the table toward him. His hand froze halfway to his coffee mug. His eyes locked onto the return address. I watched his throat move as he swallowed. He didn't pick it up right away, just stared at it like it might explode. "Open it," I said quietly. He didn't look at me. His fingers finally touched the edge of the paper, and I saw them tremble. Not much, just enough. He pulled the document out slowly, unfolded it, and his eyes scanned the page. Then nothing. No yelling, no denial, no anger, just his face draining of color as he read the same lines over and over. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I could hear my own heartbeat. He set the paper down carefully, like it was fragile, and pressed both palms flat against the table. His jaw clenched, his eyes stayed down. I waited. He said nothing. And in that silence, I knew he'd always known. If you've ever watched someone's entire world collapse without them saying a single word, you know what I'm talking about. If this story sounds familiar, or if you've ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to hear how this ends. Let me back up. 6 months earlier, everything looked normal. David and I had been together for 4 years. We weren't married yet, but we were planning it. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and owned it, confident, loud when he needed to be, always had an opinion about everything. He made decisions fast. He never second-guessed himself. I loved that about him at first. We've been trying for a baby for about 1.5 years. At first, it didn't feel like a big deal. People always say it takes time. But then his mother started asking questions. Then his sister. Then aunts I barely knew started weighing in at family dinners. "You're eating too much sugar, that's why. You need to relax, you're too stressed. Have you seen a doctor? Maybe something's wrong." They never asked David. It was always me, like my body was a broken appliance that needed fixing. And David? He just sat there, nodding along. Sometimes he'd even agree with them. "Yeah, babe, maybe you should cut back on coffee. My mom's right, you do seem stressed lately." I started to believe them. I went to the doctor, ran tests, blood work, ultrasounds, hormone panels. Everything came back normal, perfectly normal. I even showed David the results, relieved, thinking that would quiet everyone down. He barely looked at them. "That's good," he said, scrolling through his phone. "So we just keep trying." But his family didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. One Sunday, we were at his parents' house for dinner. I was helping his mom in the kitchen when she turned to me, hands on her hips, and said, "You know, my friend's daughter had the same problem. Turns out she had issues with her uterus. Have they checked that?" I felt my face get hot. "I said they checked everything. I'm fine." She made a face like she didn't believe me. "Well, something's not right. David's healthy. It's been over 1 year. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and said, "We're working on it." David's sister overheard and chimed in from the living room. "Maybe you should try those fertility treatments. I saw something on Instagram." David laughed. Actually laughed. I looked at him, waiting for him to defend me, to tell them to back off. He didn't. That night, I brought it up in the car. "Your family needs to stop. They're just trying to help," he said, eyes on the road. "They're blaming me for something that's not even a problem yet." "No one's blaming you, Maida. You're being sensitive." I turned to look at him. "Your mom literally asked if my uterus works." He sighed. "She's old-fashioned. You know how she is. And you didn't say anything." He didn't respond. I just stared out the window and felt something inside me crack. The breaking point came 3 months later. We were at a cousin's wedding. I was standing near the dessert table when one of David's aunts cornered me. She had that look on her face, pity mixed with judgment. "Still no baby, huh?" I forced a smile. "Not yet." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping like she was sharing a secret. You know, sometimes it's just not meant to be for some women. My cousin couldn't have kids either, adopted two beautiful boys. I felt my chest tighten. I can have kids. She patted my arm. Of course, sweetheart, but if it's been this long, maybe it's time to accept that your body just isn't cooperating. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locked the door, stared at my reflection, and tried not to cry. I texted David, I need to leave. He didn't respond. When I came back out, he was laughing with his cousin's drink in hand like nothing was wrong. I stood there for a full minute before he even noticed me. You good? He asked casually. I want to go home. He frowned. Already? We just got here. I'm not feeling well. He sighed like I was inconveniencing him, but he grabbed his keys. The whole drive home, he didn't ask what happened, didn't ask if I was okay, just turned up the music and drove. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and I thought, what if it's not me? The idea felt dangerous, like I was betraying him just by thinking it. But the more I replayed the last year and a half, the more things didn't add up. He never wanted to go to the doctor with me. He brushed off every conversation about testing. He let his entire family blame me without ever stepping in. The next morning, I called my doctor. Is there a test for male infertility? Of course, she said. It's actually one of the first things we recommend. Has your partner been tested? No. There was a pause. You should ask him to. It's simple, just a semen analysis. That evening, I brought it up. I think we should both get tested, I said carefully. David looked up from his laptop. You already did. I know, but there's a test for you too. His face changed. Not angry, just guarded. Why? Because we've been trying for a long time, and the doctor said it's standard. I'm fine. How do you know? I just know, Maya. But what if I said I'm fine? His tone was sharp now, final. I dropped it, but I didn't forget. 2 weeks later, I brought it up again, and again he shut it down. He got defensive every time, started accusing me of not trusting him, turned it around on me. You're obsessed with this, he said one night. It's not healthy. I just want answers. You have answers. You're fine. We just need to keep trying. But something in his voice felt off, like he was trying to convince himself, not me. That's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to ask anymore. I was just going to know. I scheduled the appointment without telling him. It felt like I was doing something wrong, like I was sneaking around, but I kept thinking about how many times I'd sat in waiting rooms alone, how many times I'd been poked and prodded while he was at work, unbothered, how many times his family made me feel like I was broken. If he wasn't going to get tested, I'd find another way. My doctor suggested a DNA test, not for paternity, we didn't have kids, but there are genetic tests that can show fertility markers, predispositions, things that might explain why conception wasn't happening. She said if I could get a sample, they could run it without him needing to be there. I felt sick even considering it, but I did it anyway. I won't go into details about how I got the sample. It felt invasive and dishonest, and I hated myself a little for it. But I kept thinking about his aunt's voice at that wedding, about his mother's constant questions, about the way David looked at me sometimes, like I was failing him. I sent it in on a Tuesday. The company said results would take 2 to 3 weeks. Those weeks were the longest of my life. David's family didn't let up. If anything, they got worse. His mother started sending me articles about fertility clinics. His sister recommended a naturopath who worked miracles. One of his cousins even suggested I see a therapist because stress blocks conception. And David just let it happen. We were at his parents' house again, and his mom was going on about how her friend's daughter did acupuncture and got pregnant right after.
I was nodding, pretending to listen, when David's dad chimed in. You know, back in my day, if a couple couldn't have kids, they just accepted it and moved on. His mom shot him a look. Tom, that's not helpful. I'm just saying, sometimes it's not in the cards. I felt everyone's eyes on me, like I was the reason it wasn't in the cards. David cleared his throat. We're still trying. It'll happen.
His mom reached over and squeezed his hand. I know it will, sweetheart. You're so patient with all this. Patient? Like I was a problem he was enduring. I excused myself to the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, hands shaking. I pulled out my phone and checked my email for the 100th time that day. Nothing. When I came back out, David was helping his mom with dishes. She was talking low, but I caught the end of it. Maybe it's just not meant to be with her. I stopped in the hallway. David didn't respond right away. Then I heard him say, I don't know, Ma. I really don't know. Not, she's fine, stop worrying. Not, it'll happen when it happens. Just, I don't know. Like he'd already given up on me. I walked back into the kitchen. Ready to go? David looked up, surprised. Yeah, let's go. The car ride home was silent. I kept replaying what I'd heard. Maybe it's not meant to be with her. I wanted to confront him, but I didn't. I just stared out the window and felt the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. That night, he fell asleep fast. I lay awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I even knew the man I was planning to marry. The email came on a Thursday. I was at work when my phone buzzed. The subject line read, Your results are ready. My hands went numb. I couldn't open it. Not there. Not in the middle of the office with people around. I shoved my phone in my drawer and tried to focus on my screen, but I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. I left early. Told my boss I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't a lie. I sat in my car in the parking lot and opened the email. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I clicked the link, entered the password, and there it was, a full report. I'm not a doctor. I didn't understand half the terms, but there was a summary at the top, written in plain language. Results indicate significant fertility concerns, low sperm count, poor motility, genetic markers associated with male infertility. I read it 3 times. Then I just sat there staring at my phone while the world tilted sideways. He knew. He had to have known. All those times he refused to get tested, all those times he let me take the blame, all those times he sat there while his family tore me apart. He knew. I don't know how long I sat in that parking lot. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. I felt numb and furious and heartbroken all at once. I drove home on autopilot. David's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I went inside, printed the report, and sat at the kitchen table with it in front of me. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I just felt hollow. When David got home an hour later, he walked in smiling, carrying takeout. Got your favorite, he said, setting the bag on the counter. Thai place on 5th. I didn't move. He looked over. You okay? I slid the envelope across the table. That's when everything stopped. He stared at it, then at me. What's this? Open it. His face changed. I saw the exact moment he understood. His hand hovered over the envelope like he was afraid to touch it. Maya, open it. He didn't move, just stood there frozen. You tested me, he said quietly. His voice wasn't angry, it was flat, empty. No, I said. I had you tested. His jaw tightened. He picked up the envelope slowly, pulled out the paper, and read. I watched his face, watched the color drain, watched his eyes move over the same lines again and again, like he was hoping the words would change. Then he set it down, pressed his palms flat on the table, and said nothing. The silence stretched. 5 seconds, 10, 20. I couldn't take it anymore. Say something. He didn't look at me, just kept staring at the paper. David. His hands curled into fists. His breathing got heavier, but still he said nothing. You knew,
I said, my voice cracked. Didn't you? I suspected, he whispered. The words hit me like a punch. You suspected. I repeated it slowly, trying to process. You suspected, and you let me go through all of that? He finally looked up, and I saw it. Guilt, shame, fear. I didn't know for sure. You didn't want to know. My voice was shaking now. You didn't want to know because then it would be your fault, so you let everyone think it was mine. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, David? I stood up. Your mother asked me if my uterus worked. Your aunt told me to accept that my body wasn't cooperating. And you sat there. You sat there and let them. I didn't know what to say. You could have said it wasn't me, I yelled now, and I didn't care. You could have told them to stop. You could have gotten tested yourself instead of making me feel like I was broken. He stood up too, running his hair through his hair. I was scared, okay? I was scared it was me and I didn't want to deal with it. So you made me deal with it instead. He didn't answer. I felt tears finally coming, hot and angry. Do you know what that did to me? Do you have any idea? I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't fix it. Sorry didn't take back a year and a half of blame. Sorry didn't erase the humiliation, the doctor's appointments, the nights I cried myself to sleep thinking something was wrong with me. Sorry wasn't enough. I grabbed my keys off the counter. Where are you going? He asked. I don't know. Anywhere but here. Maya, wait.
No. I turned to face him one last time. You don't get to ask me to wait. Not after this. I walked out. If you're watching this and you've ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault, I need you to know you're not alone. And if this story is hitting home, subscribe, because what comes next is about choosing yourself when no one else will. I stayed at my best friend Jenna's house that night. She didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door with red eyes and an overnight bag, just pulled me inside, made tea, and sat with me on the couch while I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What are you going to do?" I don't know. Do you want to fix this? I thought about it, really thought about it. I don't know if I can. She nodded. That's fair. David called 17 times that night, sent dozens of texts. I'm sorry, please come home. We need to talk. Can we please just talk? I turned my phone off. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from his mother. Maya, sweetheart, David told me what happened. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Why don't you come by for coffee and we can talk about this? I'm sure we can work it out. A misunderstanding. Like I'd misread the medical report, like I'd imagined a year and a half of blame. I deleted it. Jenna made breakfast, and we sat at her kitchen table in silence. I kept thinking about that moment at the table when David read the results, the way his face went pale, the way he couldn't even look at me. But what stuck with me most was the silence. Not the guilt, not the apology, the silence. Because in that silence, I realized something. He'd known all along. Maybe not the specifics, maybe not the medical terms, but he'd known something was wrong with him, and instead of facing it him, he let me take the fall. That wasn't love, that was cowardice. I think I'm done, I said quietly. Jenna looked up. Yeah? Yeah. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Good. I went back to the apartment 3 days later, when I knew David would be at work. I packed a suitcase, grabbed my important documents, left my key on the counter. I didn't leave a note. What was there to say that hadn't already been said? But before I left, I did one thing. I forwarded the DNA results to his mother. Not out of spite, not to hurt him, but because I needed her to know. I needed all of them to know. I was done being the scapegoat. I got a call from her 2 hours later. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maya. Her voice was different, smaller. I got your email. Good.
There was a long pause. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. None of you did. It was easier to blame me. That's not fair, isn't it? I kept my voice steady. You spent a year and a half questioning my body, my health, my ability to have children. You never once asked about David. And when I tried to suggest he get tested, he refused, and you all backed him up. She was quiet. I'm not angry, I said, which was partially true. I'm just done. Are you leaving him? I already left. Another pause, then barely a whisper. I'm sorry. It was the first time anyone in that family had apologized to me. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. But it doesn't change anything. I hung up. David showed up at Jenna's apartment that evening. I heard the knock and knew it was him before Jenna even opened the door. She looked back at me, and I nodded. She let him in. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red, clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. He stood in the doorway, hands shoved in his pockets, looking at me like a stranger. Can we talk? He asked. Jenna excused herself to her bedroom, giving us space. I stayed on the couch, didn't offer him a seat. After a moment, he said, I told my family about the results. I know, your mom called. He nodded, looked down. They feel awful. They should. I feel awful. You should. He flinched. Maya, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I need you to understand, I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it. So you made me handle it, I said quietly. You made me the problem so you didn't have to be. I know, his voice broke. I know, and I hate myself for it. That doesn't fix anything. I know that too. Take a step closer. But I love you. I want to fix this. I want us to fix this. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no love, just exhaustion. David, you let me believe I was broken. You're not. I know I'm not, but I didn't know that for a year and a half. I lay awake at night wondering what was wrong with me. I cried in doctor's offices. I listened to your family pick me apart. And you stayed silent. He wiped his eyes. I was wrong. I was so wrong.
You were selfish, I said, and I can't be with someone who would do that to me. Maya, please. No. I stood up. I spent too long trying to fix something that was never my responsibility. I'm not doing that anymore. He stared at me, and for a moment, I thought he might argue, might try to convince me. But he didn't. He just nodded and left. That was 2 months ago. I moved into my own place, a small one-bedroom apartment with big windows and a view of the park. It's quiet, peaceful, mine. David's family reached out a few times. His mom sent flowers with a card that said, "We're sorry, we were wrong." His sister called once, crying, saying she didn't know. I appreciated it, but I didn't go back. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. I ran into David once at a coffee shop downtown. We both froze. Then he gave me a small, sad smile and walked out. I didn't follow. I don't hate him. I don't even think about him much anymore. But I'll never forget what that silence taught me. It taught me that sometimes the loudest truth is the one no one wants to say. It taught me that I can't fix someone who won't admit they're broken. And it taught me that my worth was never tied to anyone's opinion of me. Not his, not his family's, not anyone's. I'm dating again, slowly, carefully. And when people ask why my last relationship ended, I tell them the truth. He let me take the blame for something that was never my fault. Some people get it, some don't, but I don't need them to. I know what happened. I know what I survived, and I know I'm stronger now than I've ever been. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy, but if any part of this resonated with you, if you've ever been blamed, gaslighted, or made to feel small, I want you to know something. You're not the problem. You never were. And you deserve someone who will stand up for you, not stay silent while you take the fall. If this story meant something to you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment telling me your story, or just let me know you were here. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because the truth always comes out. And when it does, the silence says more than words ever could. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.